So it finally happened. After 2 years of quarantining, mask wearing, on all around being careful in every way that I can, I finally went up and caught COVID. Luckily for me, I was fully vaccinated and boosted, so my symptoms were probably really mild as a result, but that doesn't mean that I have to sit here and let the virus in my body be as comfortable as it is making itself. So therefore we are going to make a garlic soup, something that I always make for myself whenever I'm sick with anything. Garlic has been studied extensively when fighting colds and flus, and has been reported to reduce the time you spend being sick by as much as half. But let me be clear, there has been no studies and no proof showing that the consumption of a lot of garlic has done anything to help you in your fight against coronavirus. That being said, I feel like shit and I'm mad about it. And this is the little bit of control that I can take that I'm sure will do no harm. So gather around, children, we are going to turn our bodies into garlicky, pungent, little hostile work environments for this disease. And I have decided that the specific virus, the little tiny thing that I caught that managed to make me this sick, is named Steve. You, Steve. The first thing you're going to need is a stock to use as a base. This is a superior stock that I had made in an Instant Pot, and even though that video is on its way, I decided to bump this one up because I felt like this would be more helpful to more people. You can use any base stock that you want. If you wanted to make it vegan, you could use a vegetable stock. If you wanted to use chicken, you can go ahead and use a boxed chicken stock. The point is, if you're making this because you're sick, you probably feel like shit, so you probably want to go with the easiest thing possible. Now, the point is to use as much garlic as you can possibly stand. Here I have 4 heads of garlic that I had peeled and used every single one in my broth. And that was only for 6 quarts of stock that I had used, so that was pretty concentrated. Because I'm going to boil the cloves whole, it is important for me to get all the skin off without chopping or crushing any of the garlic. Which is why I did that. But again, if you're feeling too sick to do anything, go ahead and order your groceries online and get pre-peeled garlic, and just get a lot of it. This soup recipe is basically a sopa de ajo with more garlic. Sopa de ajo is a Mexican and Spanish garlic-based soup, where the ingredients usually consist of garlic, some herbs, some croutons, and maybe some shaved manchego cheese. But unfortunately, when I am sick, I only have the energy to do the parts that make me feel better, which is basically cooking garlic in broth. So the first step is pretty simple. Boil your garlic in stock for 45 minutes, and then we will return here after the side quest. I might be sick, but 5-second rule still applies. In today's side quest, I had made a vegetable hot pot to celebrate Nezuko from Demon Slayer. This is the same anime as the previous side quest, just a different character. This character happens to be a vampire who does not drink human blood, or if I can remember that, any blood. So essentially she's a vegan, which I think is hilarious, and in celebration of that, I decided to make a beet red hot pot stew. To do that, I wrapped some beets in some tinfoil and roasted them at 400 degrees for 45 minutes. Beets, when they are roasted in this way, taste really sweet and have the flavor similar to corn. While those were roasting, I was preparing the other vegetables. Here are some shiitake mushrooms that I cut in a crisscross section and then took the stems off. In Chinese cuisine, there are different grades of this kind of mushroom, and each of those grades has a different name and a different use for each, but all of them, when prepared properly, are actually quite delicious. If you took the time and processed the stems, they would actually make a very good filling. The next vegetable is whatever the hell this stuff is. The only reason why I picked it was because it looked very similar to bamboo, which is in my mouth in reference to that character in the anime, and not at all involving any kind of vegan kink I might have. This was my first time cooking a bamboo sprout whole, and I realize now that I did it wrong. What I should have done is peel it as I did just now, but instead of cutting the tender pieces raw, I was supposed to poach it for 2 hours whole and then cut them later. That would have made this job a whole lot easier. This, on the other hand, I know I'm doing right. I'm slicing a lotus root right now, which is one of my favorite vegetables ever. If you've never had one before, imagine a mix between a potato and a water chestnut. And if you've never had a water chestnut before, imagine like a potato that is somewhat raw and watery and crispy and stays that way after it's cooked, but is kind of sweet. No, I got it. If you had the watery crispness of an apple with the density and flavor of a potato that is slightly sweeter, you get a lotus root. Doesn't really matter how long you boil it, it never gets mushy. oyster mushrooms are kind of like the filler queen of any vegetable braise. It's kind of like there to add some substance and just the tiniest little bit of flavor, but it's never really the star of the show. This is a giant taro root, and taro root is one of my favorite vegetables as well, next to lotus root. I like these because when you cook these, they're kind of like potatoes, but when you cook them, they cook to a very creamy consistency. It's almost the exact opposite of a lotus root. I don't know why I put the glove on like that. That was quite embarrassing. Anyways, peel your beets. It's easier to do when they're still hot. I would just kind of scrape them off with a gloved hand under running water so they don't burn your hands while you do it. And here I'm actually making the broth independent of the hot pot itself. So I put some beets, some mushrooms, and some kombu in this pot while I prepared the second pot for the hot pot with all the vegetables I was going to eat with this broth. Jesus, it took me this long to decide to change the camera position. Oh, and I did it again. Look at that. I think when I was filming these, I only owned this pretty nice camera and one sad ring light to light all my shots with. That's why you can like not see anything. Am I wearing shorts? I was totally wearing shorts. But anyways, the banding here is awful and distracting. But here I go, assembling the pot with the taro root and the lotus root and whatever the hell that was in my mouth, and bok choy and mushrooms and tomatoes. Oh, very nice. And there we go, ladling on the broth. There is kind of like a blood theme, even though the vampire in the anime that this is referencing is vegan. There's like a blood and fire type thing going on. That's why I decided the broth had to be red. And this is what it's like when it was cooking. This was actually super good. It was like sweet and earthy, and I had put some chili crisp in there and it was really spicy. Yeah, super 10 out of 10 vegan hot pot dish. Back to the garlic soup, we're gonna add herbs to it, so that gives us a little bit of herbaceous lift, and because the garlic is so heavy, a little bit of a break with freshness is always good. Because the parsley is gonna be a topping for the dish, I decided to just wrap the stems in the saddest little bouquet garni that I could come up with. That broke ass, hold on, let me bring that back up here. I know that this was strictly to add some flavor to the stock, but this looks like the saddest, brokest bouquet I'd ever seen. The fact that I'm looking at this like it's totally normal makes it even funnier. Like, yes, I once had aspirations to get on Chef's table. Not with that, John. Not with that. That being said, I know it made it taste better, so I can judge me, you cannot. So in there, apart from the really sad parsley stems, was also a tied bundle of oregano stems. Oregano does a really good job of adding a herbaceous sweetness to savory dishes. And in this case, we have a very meaty superior stock with the tons of garlic that we put in there. Any kind of freshness that we can add to it will make it a lot more palatable and something that we can drink over the course of a couple days, because I drank this over 2 days. So at this point, the garlic has been consistently simmering for about 20 minutes, and then I threw the herbs in there. Those don't need as much time, but I don't think I ever took any of those out. I kind of just left it in there, replenished with more stock and garlic as I needed. Again, I ate this stuff for 2 days, and as you can see there, I had gone through a couple of bowls already, and I had some frozen superior stock that was in the freezer from before, and I just stuck that in there along with more cloves of garlic, and it's just perpetual garlic soup. Again, I am not saying that garlic soup will help you get over COVID faster in any kind of way. I'll also remind y'all that I had the benefit of being vaccinated fully and boosted, so I also benefited from an immune system that had seen this before and kind of knew what to do in response to it when I finally got it. That being said, the soup is still the most delicious way that you could potentially, possibly, maybe, yes or no, help yourself get over any kind of sickness. And the beauty about it is that even though I was sick and I felt like shit, it's still easy enough that even me in my weakened state, I was able to put a bowl of this together. It was much harder filming it, but making it was very easy. I will say that I filmed this less than a week ago. I think 5 or 6 days ago I actually did the filming for this, and now I'm pretty much almost completely over it. I had 2 days of a super mild fever followed by a few days of weakness, and then I had lost my smell and taste completely for one evening before starting to get it back as soon as the next day. I feel like I have almost all my taste back and my smell has almost completely returned, and that took about 3 days. Cases are said to rise this summer, so be careful out there, and to everybody who is recovering from this, I hope you guys feel better, lots of fluids, and I wish you all a steady recovery and the best of luck.